Thank you, Jose. I want to thank Fernando for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I also want to thank the hosts of this park, of the Mycological Park, to show us their amazing job they make here. And as a colleague of me said yesterday, it's a dream for French people. And I'm going to tell you a story about something which is just starting in southern France. It's an initiative from a city called Le Vigan. And I will speak on the name of everybody who is here in this slide, people from the city, people from my lab. And I will be open to any questions after this short presentation. First of all, the place where we work it's located near Montpellier city. Here, the Le Vigan is a territory located 50 kilometers at the north from Montpellier, close to a mountainous region called les Cévennes. And this is a region which suffered a lot of an industrial decline. It's rural, it's a rural place. And the industry declined a lot during the last decades, but also the agriculture had many problems to maintain in this area. So the city of Le Vigan is searching for perspectives for his farmers to maintain an activity in the landscape. Can I remove it? Oh, thank you. And also tries to stimulate tourism because this region is also attractive for people from large French cities, from Paris, for instance, to have a real break in nature. So Les Cévennes is something like a mythic places for people searching for calm and a place to stay for a few days. So this is the context from a very short socio-economic perspective and from a geographical perspective. About ecology, the forests are highly diverse in these landscapes. We can find oak forests, pine forests, chestnut forests, and many, many plantations of many tree species in the mountainous region. I just placed a very old map from the early 20th century showing that there is a zone dominated by Quercus silex. This is the blue one. And when you go to the mountains, the chestnut belt is occurring. So the landscape are currently dominated by old plantations of chestnut trees and at a declining stage. We start from a story which was initiated 37 years ago. The city and a local association of mycologists and naturalist people initiated an inventory of the species who are fruiting around Le Vigan in a radius of 30 kilometers around. So they start doing this inventory, and yearly, during the last 37 years, they collected everything, identified everything, and created a kind of garden list of the region. So the result is here. You can see the accumulation curve of the species diversity of mushrooms, and it's quite amazing to see that we are currently 1,343 species identified near Le Vigan. So this is the basis where we start now as a kind of point zero of the richness of the territory and the potential for mushroom activities in general. Mushroom picking, in this diversity we have more than 50 species that are edible, and many things interesting from a cultural perspective, from food industrial perspective, from forest perspective, from many aspects of what we can do with mushrooms. So the starting point is this experience of inventory, and it's a scientific approach at the beginning, but favored and funded, supported financially by the city. And they wanted to maintain this activity even when, 20 years ago, the budget of the city was very bad. So there was a clear volunteer to maintain this mushroom-based activity in the city. Here is the picture of our partners. I want just to show you the faces of these guys from Le Vigan. and their ambition is to promote, in the long term, mushroom-based development in their territory. They have several problems. The first one is how to restore a production which clearly declined during the last decades. We have a few interviews now showing that the owners of the forest could measure the change in mushroom production with the decline, for instance, of chestnut trees, and this land abandonment who changed the landscapes. So one challenge for us now is to find, as you showed us this morning, the silvicultural practices that would be efficient, that would be adapted. And our stay here is really interesting because we see that something is possible, and we would like to use your experience, use your expertise to adapt what would be possible there. There is a second problem. There are many really small properties in this landscape, not large public properties. So how to imagine a park or something that would be like a park, putting together all these diversities of people and with the objective of federating them in a common project. So it's not easy to connect people and to talk with everybody. So there is a social dimension and a field constraint that are very strong. And the third problem you have also here, I think, maybe more than us. We clearly feel the climate change effect on the forest. And we have, behind the observed decline, there is not only the problem of the forest decline, there is also a problem of climate change, with a decrease of rainfall, an increased length of the dry season. Rainfall stops earlier, starts later, and the extreme events are more frequent. So we have these problems to manage also in this long-term perspective. To start by somewhere, we chose to work in chestnut tree forests because they dominate clearly the landscape. This is an introduced species in this place of France. It's not a tertiary refuge in the long term of the history. It's a tree which was planted in the Middle Age, and people developed their society around this tree, and there are many cultural values associated to this species now. So we imagined that it would be a good focal species and a good focal ecosystem to work with for mushrooms. And of course, as you know, chestnut tree hosts many interesting edible mushroom species, and there is a tradition of collecting in this system. The last point is that chestnut trees are not so good for mushrooms now, but there are still many other activities like honey production, goat, parcours, how do you say that? Or pastoral activities. And also, of course, nut harvest and commercialization. Livestock, of course. We start with a few interviews, as I said previously, and I just put a part of the interview with a French guy, a French owner of chestnut trees. So he says, it's in italic here, he says that there are less and less mushrooms, probably because of climate change. My father said that when he was young, there were so many mushrooms that they were growing in the road. So this feeling is shared by all the people who interviewed so far, and they are waiting for something like a romantic view of the forest and something from the past. They would be come back now and try to go back to their own history of people. So we try to keep in mind that there is a social dimension there, this project. Of course, this territory, maybe as here, suffers a lot of pests and pathogens. The chestnut tree is attacked by Phytophthora, by Cryphonectria, by Duioscomus. So many insects and fungi are attacking these species. But we are now in a period where other problems occurred. For instance, wild boars. You have here the number of officially killed wild boars in the region. The real numbers are certainly higher and very higher. And we can see clearly that the density of this species is problematic. And if you want to place designs in forests to produce mushrooms, you will have to deal with these wild boars who are destroying everything. And this is a clear problem of management now. So where we are now and where do we go, where we try to go, we started what we call an aggregation phase. So we think that we could build a network of people, a bipartite network, we call that, because they are forests and they are people. And we don't want to forget that they are people. And we want to link forest and people from various places in the commercialization process, people who are owners, people who are at the restaurants, people who are negotiating wild mushrooms at Montpellier, for instance, because there is a very strong tendency to consume local food, and mushrooms from Cevennes have a high value for people who are living in Montpellier. So there is something to link between Cevennes and Montpellier actors. We are performing social investigations, and we have a clear social problem with the pressure on mushrooms. So this is the last slide, I think. I have also placed a part of another interview from another guy from the region. So this guy said, I would like the collect to be regulated at 200%. Everything is destroyed on Aigual. Aigual is the forest massif on the close Le Vigan each season. It's a pity that the national park and the herd zone of the park didn't run any regulation of this. Everybody does what he wants. There are too much communication among people around this subject, and the local people, when we go picking mushroom, we respect the territory, but not the others. So we feel that there is a potential problem of conflict if we develop something with many people arriving, because there is yet a problem of pressure and social competition for the resource. So the second phase will be testing with the few people who want to start something concrete in the forest by trying myco-silviculture practices, for instance, by connecting with people who are selling mushrooms. So we're trying to start with a group of first owners who want to go with us, and we're working with Fernando for that. And we need this support of the Mycological European Institute. And in the third phase, we are planning to integrate a larger panel of people and actors, hoping that we will provide l'envie de venir. We will suggest a kind of a pleasure to come to join us, seeing that it's possible to do that. Cooperation. So that's all. Thank you.